Some dogs retire. Some dogs get forgotten. But every once in a while, one remembers something the world was never supposed to find again. Snow drifted sideways across the training yard of the Alberta Provincial Police K-9 Academy, turning the floodlights into pale smears against the dark winter sky. The wind carried the sharp scent of pine, diesel, and wet concrete through the chain-link fences that surrounded the compound just outside Edmonton. It was nearly 6 in the evening, and the temperature had already dropped below -12. Young recruits in heavy navy jackets moved between the obstacle course and the heated garage bays, laughing louder than necessary, trying to fight the cold with noise. Near the far end of the yard, separated from the younger dogs, an aging German shepherd lay quietly inside an outdoor kennel dusted with snow. His nameplate read Milo. Most recruits barely looked at him anymore. "Poor old guy can hardly stand," one trainee muttered while tightening his gloves. Another smirked. "Yeah, they should have retired him years ago." A few chuckles followed. Milo didn't react. He remained still on the concrete slab, thick sable fur touched with silver around the muzzle and ears, amber eyes half opened beneath the dim security light. The old dog's breathing was slow and measured, fogging softly in the freezing air. He looked less like a police K-9 now and more like a memory someone forgot to pack away. The younger shepherds barked from nearby runs, restless and sharp with energy, but Milo stayed silent. He had stopped wasting strength on proving himself a long time ago. Inside the main training building, fluorescent lights hummed overhead while Sergeant Elise Bouchard reviewed patrol schedules at the front desk. Her reading glasses sat low on her nose as she scanned paperwork with the tired patience of someone who had spent 20 years trying to keep reckless young officers alive. Outside, headlights swept slowly across the snow-covered lot. A dark gray Ford Explorer rolled through the academy gates, tires crunching over fresh ice. Several recruits glanced toward the vehicle with mild curiosity before returning to their conversations. The engine shut off. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the driver's door opened, and Officer Nathan Mercer stepped into the cold. He was 42, broad-shouldered beneath a charcoal winter coat, with short brown hair beginning to gray at the temples and the kind of posture that came from decades spent watching people lie for a living. Snow settled lightly across his shoulders as he closed the door and stood still for a second, breathing in the frozen air. His face looked worn in a quiet way. Not exhausted. Just older than it should have been. Nathan had transferred back to Alberta after nearly 8 years in Vancouver's Major Crimes Division, though nobody at the academy knew much about that. Recruits noticed the scar near his jawline before they noticed anything else. One of them whispered, "That's Mercer." Another nodded carefully. "Yeah. Heard he used to work cold cases." Nathan walked past the younger officers without speaking, boots crunching steadily through the snow toward the administration building. Then, somewhere behind the row of kennels, a metal bowl scraped faintly against concrete. Nathan slowed. The sound came again. Small. Uneven. Almost hesitant. He turned his head toward the final kennel near the fence line. Milo was standing now. Barely. The old shepherd's legs trembled slightly beneath him as snow gathered across his back, but his eyes were locked directly onto Nathan. Not curious. Not fearful. Recognizing. The recruits nearby fell quiet when the dog took one slow step forward, then another, pressing close to the kennel gate as though something inside him had suddenly awakened after years of silence. Nathan stared back without moving. The color slowly drained from his face. Because 14 years earlier, in the middle of a warehouse fire near Vancouver Harbour, he had watched that same dog disappear into smoke alongside a case everyone told him to forget. And until this moment, Nathan Mercer had believed Milo was dead. The wind pressed harder against the academy fences as Nathan stood motionless beside the kennel row, his breath turning pale beneath the floodlights. Around him, the younger recruits exchanged uncertain glances, sensing something had shifted even if they did not understand what. Milo remained at the gate, trembling slightly, his old body rigid with focus. The dog did not bark. He simply stared at Nathan with the quiet intensity of recognition that had waited far too many years. Sergeant Elise Bouchard stepped outside, pulling her wool coat tighter against the cold. "Mercer," she called gently, noticing the expression on his face. "You know this dog?" Nathan did not answer right away. Snow crunched softly beneath his boots as he moved closer to the kennel. Milo lowered his head slightly, ears twitching forward, amber eyes never leaving him. There was gray around the shepherd's muzzle now, and the once powerful shoulders had grown lean beneath the thick winter coat, but Nathan recognized the scar near the left ear immediately. A thin pale line hidden beneath the fur. He remembered exactly when it happened. Vancouver Harbour. November rain. A collapsing steel doorway. Impossible, Nathan murmured under his breath. One of the recruits nearby frowned. You really worked with him? Nathan finally looked up. 14 years ago. Silence settled over the yard. Even the younger dogs in the adjacent kennels seemed quieter now, as though the cold itself had paused to listen. Nathan crouched slowly beside the gate. Milo took a hesitant step forward, nose pressing carefully through the metal bars. Nathan removed his glove and held out his hand. For one long second, neither moved. Then the old shepherd leaned into his palm with a soft exhale that sounded almost human. The touch hit Nathan harder than he expected. Memories returned all at once. Salt air. Flashing patrol lights reflecting off wet pavement. The distant sound of container cranes moving through thick fog near the harbor docks. Back then, Nathan Mercer had still believed every case could be solved if you worked hard enough. Milo had been younger too. Fast. Fearless. The best tracking K9 in British Columbia according to half the department. Together they had worked organized crime investigations across Vancouver, often spending nights following scent trails through alleys soaked with rain while the city slept behind glowing apartment windows. Nathan remembered how Milo used to sit perfectly still during stakeouts, ears alert beneath the dashboard glow, waiting for commands that rarely needed to be spoken aloud. They understood each other in ways most partners never did. Then came the Marlowe case. Nathan had not spoken that name in years. Claire Marlowe had been a financial crimes witness scheduled to testify against a powerful construction executive connected to money laundering across Western Canada. 2 days before her testimony, she vanished. No note. No calls. No trace except for a burned warehouse near Vancouver Harbour and one terrified dockworker who swore he heard shouting before the fire alarms began. Nathan and Milo were assigned lead search detail. For 3 straight days they worked the waterfront through freezing rain and bitter wind off the Pacific. Milo found scent. Trails nobody else noticed. Small things. A torn scarf caught beneath a loading ramp. Fresh tire marks hidden beneath slush. A blood-stained key tag half buried near Pier 14. Nathan remembered the feeling growing in his chest back then. The quiet certainty that someone inside the department wanted the case buried. Then, on the 4th night, the warehouse fire happened. Nathan still woke up some mornings hearing the sound of twisting steel and distant sirens cutting through rain. Milo had disappeared inside the smoke while chasing a scent trail near the east loading corridor. Officers pulled Nathan back before he could follow. Part of the roof collapsed minutes later. Search crews never found the dog. No remains. No tracker signal. Nothing. The department closed the file 3 months later. Claire Marlowe remained missing. Milo was listed as deceased in service. Nathan transferred out of major crimes the following winter and never returned to Vancouver Harbour again. Yet now, under the frozen Alberta sky, the impossible stood breathing quietly on the other side of a kennel gate. The academy settled into uneasy quiet after evening drills ended, but Nathan could not pull himself away from the kennel row. Snow continued drifting through the floodlights in slow silver currents while distant traffic hummed faintly beyond the tree line. Most recruits had already gone inside to warm themselves beside burnt coffee and vending machine soup, yet Milo remained awake near the gate, watching Nathan with the same patient focus he once carried through long nights on the Vancouver waterfront. Sergeant Elise Bouchard stepped beside him, her boots creaking softly against packed snow. "We found him 6 years ago," she said quietly. Northern Transport Unit outside Red Deer picked him up wandering near Highway 2 during a snowstorm. Nathan frowned slightly. No identification. Elise shook her head. Old scar tissue. Faded tactical harness. Whoever found him thought he was just another abandoned shepherd. Nathan stared at Milo in disbelief. And nobody checked the service tattoo. By the time they brought him in, the ink was almost gone. Elise exhaled slowly into the cold. Veterinary records estimated his age around 5 back then. They transferred him here for rehabilitation. Nathan looked back toward the old dog. He survived all that time alone. Apparently. The answer sat heavy between them. Milo lowered himself carefully onto the concrete, though his eyes never left Nathan's face. Inside the Academy building, warm yellow light spilled through frosted windows while a radio played softly somewhere near the front offices. The smell of wet wool, coffee, and kennel disinfectant drifted through the air whenever the side door opened. Nathan remembered those smells too. Police stations all across Canada carried the same strange mixture of exhaustion and duty. It was nearly 7 when one of the younger recruits stepped outside carrying a leash and a metal food tray. Tall, broad, maybe 23 years old. His academy patch read Owen Clark. He hesitated after noticing Nathan beside the kennel. "Sorry, sir," Owen said carefully. "Did not know anyone was still out here." Nathan nodded once. "You handle him often?" Owen glanced awkwardly toward Milo. "Sometimes." The answer lacked confidence. Nathan noticed immediately. "You are afraid of him?" Owen gave an embarrassed laugh. "Not exactly." He searched for the right words. "Feels different from the other dogs." Milo remained silent while Owen entered the kennel carrying the food tray. The young recruit crouched carefully, setting the dish near the back wall. "He barely listens during exercises," Owen admitted quietly. "Most days he just stares at the fence." Nathan watched Milo closely. "No," he said after a moment. "He is listening." Owen frowned slightly, not understanding. Before he could answer, Milo suddenly lifted his head toward the dark tree line beyond the academy fence. The shepherd's ears sharpened forward. His posture changed instantly. Nathan saw it too. The old instinct. The same alertness that used to surface seconds before danger appeared during investigations years earlier. Milo rose slowly to his feet. A low sound rumbled deep in his chest. Not aggression. Warning. Nathan turned toward the woods. At first he saw nothing except blowing snow and black pine branches shifting in the wind. Then came the faint metallic clang of something hitting chain-link fencing near the back maintenance lot. Owen straightened quickly. "Probably just the wind," he muttered. But Milo did not relax. The shepherd moved closer to the kennel gate, body tense despite the tremble in his legs. Nathan felt the old sensation return beneath his ribs. The instinct that had kept him alive through too many midnight calls and frozen crime scenes. Milo only reacted like this when he caught something important. Then the old shepherd looked directly at Nathan again and gave one short bark. The sound echoed sharply through the snowy yard, stopping both men cold. Elise stepped back outside moments later. "What happened?" Nathan did not answer immediately. Because suddenly, for the first time in 14 years, he realized something that made the winter air feel even colder. Milo had not looked at him tonight like a dog greeting an old partner. He had looked at him like a dog trying to finish something. The academy lights dimmed one section at a time as night settled deeper across the Alberta plains, but Nathan still could not shake the feeling pressing against the back of his mind. Snow whispered across the pavement in thin waves while the temperature dropped closer to -15. Somewhere beyond the kennel yard, a freight train groaned through the darkness, its distant horn carrying across frozen fields like a lonely warning. Milo had not moved far from the gate after barking. The old shepherd now stood quietly beside the fence, staring toward the maintenance lot beyond the storage sheds. Nathan followed the dog's gaze. The chain-link fence near the back corner swayed slightly in the wind. Nothing else. No movement. No sound except the soft rattling of loose metal. Owen Clark shifted uneasily beside him. "You really think he heard something?" Nathan kept his eyes on the darkness. Milo never reacted without reason. Owen glanced back toward the old shepherd, uncertainty flickering across his face. Earlier that afternoon he had laughed with the other recruits while Milo struggled through a simple retrieval drill. Now the same dog stood in the snow like a sentry refusing to abandon his post. Sergeant Elise folded her arms tightly against the cold. "Maintenance crew left about 2 hours ago," she said quietly. "Nobody should be back there tonight." Nathan nodded once and stepped toward the side gate leading into the storage area. Milo immediately straightened. The old shepherd gave another short rumble deep in his chest and pressed closer to the kennel door. Nathan stopped halfway. "Open it," he said softly. Owen blinked. "Sir." "The kennel." Elise hesitated. "Mercer, he is retired." Nathan finally looked at her. "And he still knows something we do not." For a long moment, only the wind answered. Then Elise reached for the latch. The kennel gate clicked open. Milo stepped out slowly onto the snow-covered pavement. His joints looked stiff with age, but the moment his paws touched open ground, something changed. In him. The shepherd lifted his nose into the freezing air, breathing carefully. Watching. Listening. Nathan felt a chill unrelated to the weather. He remembered this version of Milo too well. The tracking posture. The stillness before movement. The absolute certainty in the dog's instincts. Owen stared quietly as Milo began walking toward the maintenance lot, moving slower than he once had but with unmistakable purpose. Nathan followed beside him while the recruit trailed several steps behind. Their boots crunched softly through fresh snow beneath pale security lights. The farther they moved from the main academy building, the quieter everything became. The warm glow from the offices faded behind them until only darkness, steel fencing, and drifting snow remained. Near the back storage shed, Milo suddenly stopped. His ears twitched forward. Nathan crouched slightly, scanning the area. Old tire tracks crossed the lot beneath a thin layer of ice. A maintenance trailer sat parked beside stacks of unused training barriers dusted white with snow. Nothing unusual. Then Milo moved again. Slowly this time. Deliberately. He approached the fence line where dead weeds pushed through frozen gravel near the outer corner of the compound. The old shepherd lowered his head and pawed once at the snow. Nathan stepped closer. Under the dim security light, he noticed something half buried beneath ice near the fence post. A small black object wrapped in weathered plastic. Owen frowned. "What is that?" Nathan carefully knelt down, gloved fingers brushing frost away from the package. The plastic crackled faintly as he lifted it free. Old tape. Water damage. Dirt packed into the seams. Milo stood beside him completely still now, watching with unblinking eyes. Nathan's pulse slowed the moment he saw the faded marking beneath the ice. His stomach tightened instantly. Because printed across the corner of the package, barely visible through years of wear, was an evidence label from Vancouver Major Crimes dated 14 years earlier. Nathan carried the frozen evidence package back into the academy offices with careful hands, as though the brittle plastic might collapse beneath the weight of memory alone. Snow melted slowly from his coat onto the tiled hallway floor while the old fluorescent lights buzzed overhead with a tired electrical hum. Milo followed close behind him without needing a leash, his paws clicking softly against the concrete corridor. Several recruits stopped talking the moment they saw the shepherd walking beside Nathan. Earlier that evening they had mocked the old dog for stumbling through drills. Now nobody laughed. Owen Clark stayed near the back of the group, watching Milo with a different expression entirely. Not pity anymore. Respect beginning to take shape. Sergeant Elise unlocked a small conference room near the records office while Nathan placed the package carefully on the table beneath the harsh ceiling light. The faded evidence label looked even older indoors. Water stains spread across the edges like bruises left behind by time itself. Vancouver Major Crimes Unit. Case file reference partially visible beneath cracked tape. Nathan stared at it in silence while memories pressed harder against him with every passing second. 14 years. 14 years believing the investigation had died in that warehouse fire beside the harbor. Elise folded her arms quietly. "Can you open it?" Nathan nodded once. His fingers moved slowly across the brittle tape. The room smelled faintly of stale coffee, printer ink, and wet winter coats drying near the heater vents. Milo lowered himself onto the floor beside the doorway, though his eyes remained fixed on the package. Owen stood near the wall, barely breathing. Nathan finally peeled back the last strip of damaged plastic. Inside sat a smaller waterproof pouch wrapped in old cloth. His pulse slowed instantly the moment he recognized the dark navy fabric beneath the frost stains. Police issue evidence wrap used only by major crimes detectives in British Columbia 15 years earlier. Nathan swallowed carefully. No way, he murmured. He unfolded the cloth layer by layer until a small silver keychain slid gently onto the table with a soft metallic click. Owen frowned slightly. That is it. Nathan did not answer immediately. His face had gone pale again. Because attached to the keychain was a tiny rectangular tag engraved with one number. 7142, Elise looked closer. What does that mean? Nathan stared at the number without blinking. Doc's storage locker. The room fell still. Outside, wind rattled ice against the academy windows while distant kennel dogs barked faintly somewhere beyond the yard. Nathan leaned back slowly in his chair, the weight of old exhaustion settling across his face. Claire Marlowe kept financial records hidden before she disappeared, he said quietly. Bank transfers. Shipping invoices. Names connected to offshore laundering operations. Owen listened carefully now, completely absorbed. Nathan continued. One witness claimed she rented a private locker near Vancouver Harbour 2 days before the fire. We searched every dock facility within 20 kilometers. His eyes lowered toward the keychain. Never found it. Elise frowned. You think this belongs to that locker? Nathan nodded once. Or belonged. Silence settled heavily across the room again. Then Owen glanced toward Milo near the doorway. How would he have this? Nathan looked at the old shepherd. Milo remained completely still, though his ears twitched faintly when Nathan spoke. Because he found it before the fire. Elise blinked. You think he carried this all these years? Nathan exhaled slowly through his nose. Not just carried it. He looked back toward the frozen evidence pouch. Protected it. The realization spread quietly through the room like cold water. Milo had vanished during the warehouse collapse while tracking a scent trail connected to Claire Marlowe's disappearance. Somehow the dog survived. Somehow he escaped the fire carrying evidence everyone else failed to recover. And somehow, after 14 years of drifting through storms, transport routes, shelters, and forgotten kennels across Western Canada, the old shepherd had ended up here beside Nathan again. Not by accident. Nathan felt it deep down now. The same instinct that once guided him through sleepless investigations and rain-soaked crime scenes near the harbor. Milo had not spent 14 years lost. He had spent 14 years waiting. The storm deepened overnight across northern Alberta, wrapping the academy grounds in heavy silence broken only by the occasional groan of wind against the fences. Snow gathered thick along the parking lot and buried the lower halves of the patrol vehicles beneath pale drifts that reflected the security lights like frozen glass. Inside the records office, Nathan Mercer sat alone beneath a dim desk lamp while old case files lay spread across the table around him. Most of the academy had gone quiet hours earlier. The younger recruits slept upstairs in narrow dorm rooms while radiators hissed softly through the walls. But Nathan had not moved from the records desk since midnight. The silver locker key rested beside his coffee cup, catching the yellow light every time snow gusted against the windows. Milo lay nearby on an old wool blanket Elise had brought down from storage. The shepherd appeared exhausted now. His breathing slower than before. Yet every so often, one ear twitched toward Nathan whenever papers shifted across the desk. Like he was still working the case beside him. Nathan rubbed tired eyes and opened another archive report from Vancouver Major Crimes. The paper smelled faintly of dust and old ink. Most of the names meant nothing now. Retired officers. Dead leads. Witnesses who vanished into different provinces over the years. But one detail kept pulling at him. Doc's storage locker 7142 had never appeared in the official inventory search. Not once. Which meant somebody removed it from the records before the investigation ever reached court. Nathan leaned back slowly, staring toward the dark window where snow pressed softly against the glass. He remembered arguments inside the department after Claire Marlowe disappeared. Supervisors demanding shorter reports. Evidence requests denied without explanation. Detectives quietly transferred off the case one by one. At the time Nathan blamed bureaucracy. Now he wondered if it had been fear. The office door creaked open behind him. Owen Clark stepped inside carrying 2 fresh coffees in paper cups. Thought you might still be awake, the recruit said quietly. Nathan accepted the coffee with a tired nod. You should be sleeping. Owen glanced toward Milo curled beside the desk. Could not. His eyes stayed on the old shepherd for a moment. I keep thinking about what you said earlier. Nathan took a sip of coffee. Bitter. Too hot. About what? That he waited all this time. The room fell quiet except for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead. Owen moved closer to the table, studying the old reports spread across the desk. You really think someone inside the department buried this? Nathan looked down at the faded case files. I think good officers stopped asking questions because they were told to. Owen swallowed carefully. Young enough to still believe policing was simple. Nathan recognized that look too. He used to carry it himself. Milo suddenly lifted his head from the blanket. The shepherd stared toward the evidence table, ears slowly sharpening forward again. Nathan noticed immediately. What is it? Owen whispered. Milo rose stiffly onto tired legs and walked toward the scattered files. His nose moved carefully across the papers before stopping beside one photograph near the edge of the table. Nathan picked it up slowly. The image showed Vancouver Harbour 14 years earlier. Rain. Police tape. Shipping containers stacked beneath floodlights. At first glance nothing unusual stood out. Then Nathan saw the small figure standing near the far loading dock in the background. A man in a dark winter coat partially turned away from the camera. Nathan's pulse slowed. No, he murmured. Owen leaned closer. You know him. Nathan stared harder at the blurred photograph while memory returned piece by piece like ice cracking beneath pressure. Tall build. Gray scarf. Black leather gloves. Deputy Chief Warren Devereaux. One of the highest-ranking officers in Vancouver at the time. Officially he had no involvement in the Marlowe investigation. Yet there he stood near the warehouse hours before the fire destroyed the evidence trail. Milo gave a low sound deep in his throat. Nathan looked down at the old shepherd beside the desk. The dog's amber eyes remained fixed on the photograph without blinking. And for the first time in 14 years, Nathan realized Milo had not only remembered the evidence. He had remembered the men. Morning arrived slowly beneath a sky the color of steel wool, heavy clouds hanging low over the academy grounds while fresh snow buried the fences and patrol lanes in silence. Nathan Mercer had not slept. By 6:30 he stood alone beside the front garage bay, staring at the old harbor photograph through the dim blue light of dawn. Frost curled around the edges of the image where his fingers held it too tightly. Deputy Chief Warren Devereaux. Even after 14 years, the sight of the men still carried the same cold pressure Nathan remembered from Vancouver. Calm voice. Expensive gloves. Eyes that never revealed anything. Inside the academy kennels, Milo rested quietly beneath a heat lamp while veterinary staff checked his joints and breathing. The old shepherd appeared tired after the previous night, but every time Nathan moved out of sight, Milo lifted his head searching for him again. Owen Clark noticed it too. He watches you constantly, the recruit said softly while pulling on insulated gloves near the supply lockers. Nathan folded the photograph carefully into his coat pocket. He used to do that during investigations. Owen hesitated before speaking again. Do you think Devereaux is still alive? Nathan nodded once. Retired 3 years ago. Last known address was outside Kelowna. Owen looked uneasy. You are thinking about reopening everything, are you? Nathan stared out toward the snow-covered yard where recruits jogged through morning drills beneath drifting wind. I think Milo already did. The words settled heavily between them. Nearby, Sergeant Elise Bouchard stepped from the administration office carrying a tablet and printed records. I made a few calls, she said quietly. Dock Locker 7142 still exists. Nathan looked up immediately. Elise handed him the file. Private shipping facility near Vancouver Harbour. Ownership changed twice since the fire, but the locker itself remained active under sealed legal status. Owen frowned. Meaning what? Elise exhaled slowly. Meaning somebody paid to keep it untouched for 14 years. Nathan felt the same cold sensation return beneath his ribs. Milo had hidden the key. Somebody else had hidden the locker. Two people protecting the same secret for entirely different reasons. A gust of wind rattled the garage doors while Academy loudspeakers crackled faintly overhead announcing morning rotations. Nathan looked toward the kennels again. I need to see inside that locker. Elise lowered her voice. If Devereaux buried evidence connected to Marlowe, this could destroy careers. Nathan's expression hardened slightly. Claire Marlowe lost her life because people stayed quiet. Silence followed. Owen shifted uneasily beside them. The young recruit looked older somehow than he had the night before. Less certain. More aware of the weight carried inside old investigations. Then movement near the kennel corridor caught Nathan's eye. Milo was standing again despite the veterinarian trying gently to guide him back toward the blanket. The shepherd ignored the commands entirely. His gaze remained fixed toward Nathan. Waiting. Nathan walked over slowly and crouched beside him. Up close, the dog's age showed everywhere now. Stiff joints. Clouded flecks around tired amber eyes. Faint scars hidden beneath thick sable fur. Yet underneath all of it remained the same unwavering focus Nathan remembered from the harbor docks years earlier. Milo leaned his head lightly against Nathan's arm. Not seeking comfort. Asking for trust. Nathan rested a gloved hand gently along the old shepherd's neck. You carried this alone all this time, did you not? Milo closed his eyes briefly at the sound of his voice. Owen stood nearby in silence watching the scene unfold. The recruit who once mocked the aging K9 now looked at him the way young officers look at memorial walls inside police stations. With humility. Outside, snow continued falling softly across the Alberta plains while morning light struggled through heavy clouds. Nathan finally rose to his feet and looked toward Elise. Get me transportation south, he said quietly. And prepare temporary authorization for evidence recovery. Owen blinked. You are taking him. With you. Nathan glanced down at Milo. The old shepherd was already standing beside him despite the pain in his legs. Ready before anyone asked. Nathan gave the faintest nod. This case belongs to both of us. The drive from Alberta to the British Columbia coast took nearly 14 hours through snow-covered highways and mountain passes wrapped in freezing fog. Nathan Mercer kept both hands steady on the steering wheel while gray daylight faded slowly across the Rockies outside the windshield. Beside him in the back of the police transport SUV, Milo rested quietly on a thick blanket near the heater vent, though every time the vehicle slowed near intersections or roadside stations, the old shepherd lifted his head instinctively as if tracking invisible threads woven into memory itself. Owen Clark sat in the passenger seat surrounded by case files, printed maps, and empty coffee cups from highway stops scattered between Calgary and Kamloops. The recruit barely spoke during most of the drive. The farther west they traveled, the more the investigation stopped feeling like an old story and started feeling alive again. Rain replaced snow shortly after they crossed into the Fraser Valley. By the time Vancouver Harbour appeared through the darkness beyond the highway barriers, cold Pacific mist had swallowed the city skyline in pale silver haze. Nathan felt his chest tighten the moment salt air touched the vents inside the vehicle. 14 years disappeared all at once. The harbor still smelled the same. Rainwater. Rusted steel. Diesel fuel drifting across wet pavement beneath container cranes that moved slowly against the clouds like giant shadows. Milo rose stiffly the moment the SUV rolled past the old waterfront district. His ears sharpened forward immediately. Nathan noticed through the mirror. He remembers, Owen whispered softly. Nathan did not answer. Because deep down, he remembered too. They reached the private dock facility just after 11 that night. The storage compound sat behind tall chain-link fencing near the eastern cargo piers, hidden between shipping yards and abandoned warehouses coated in rain. A lone security lamp flickered above the entrance gate while ocean wind rattled loose metal signs against the fence posts. Nathan showed temporary authorization papers to the overnight attendant, an older man wrapped in a heavy rain jacket who looked increasingly uncomfortable after hearing the locker number. Nobody has touched 7,142 in years, the attendant muttered quietly. We were told never to open it without legal approval. Nathan exchanged a glance with Owen. Who told you that? The attendant hesitated. Management changed hands twice since then. Nobody asks questions anymore. Rain tapped steadily against the roof as the gate rolled open. Inside the compound, rows of storage units stretched into darkness beneath weak security lights reflecting off puddles and wet asphalt. Milo stepped carefully from the SUV despite his age, paws splashing softly against rainwater while the harbor wind moved through his fur. The old shepherd paused for a second, breathing deeply into the night air. Then he began walking. Nathan followed immediately. Owen hurried beside them carrying a flashlight while rain soaked through their jackets within minutes. The deeper they moved into the compound, the quieter the harbor became until only distant foghorns and dripping rain echoed between storage rows. Finally Milo stopped near the far end of the property beside a rusted blue locker partially hidden beneath overgrown weeds and years of neglect. 7142, the faded white numbers barely remained visible beneath corrosion and salt stains. Milo stood directly in front of it now, completely still despite the rain running down his muzzle. Nathan stepped closer, heart pounding harder than it had in years. He inserted the silver key into the old lock. For one terrible second it refused to move. Then came a heavy metallic click. Owen swallowed nervously beside him. Nathan slowly pulled the locker door open. A wave of stale cold air drifted outward carrying the scent of damp paper and rust. Inside sat a single waterproof case covered beneath dusty tarps. Nothing else. No valuables. No weapons. Just one forgotten evidence container waiting silently in darkness for 14 years. Nathan knelt carefully beside it while rainwater dripped from his coat sleeves onto the concrete floor. Milo lowered himself beside the case with a long exhausted breath, resting one paw gently against the edge as though protecting it one final time. Nathan looked down at the old shepherd, and for the first time since this journey began, he understood the truth completely. Milo had not survived all these years because of instinct alone. He survived because somewhere deep inside that loyal old heart, he believed Nathan would eventually come back for the truth. Rain continued falling over Vancouver Harbour long after midnight while Nathan Mercer carefully unclasped the rusted latches on the waterproof evidence case inside. Storage locker 7142. The old hinges groaned softly as the lid opened beneath flickering security lights. Ocean wind drifted through the compound carrying the scent of saltwater and diesel across the wet pavement while distant cargo cranes moved slowly through the fog like ghosts from another lifetime. Owen Clark stood silent beside the locker, flashlight trembling faintly in his hand. Milo remained lying near the case, exhausted amber eyes fixed on Nathan with quiet patience. Inside the container sat dozens of sealed financial records wrapped in waterproof sleeves. Bank transfers. Shipping manifests. Property agreements linked to shell corporations stretching from British Columbia to offshore accounts overseas. Nathan's breathing slowed as he turned each page carefully beneath the rain-speckled light. Then he found the final envelope resting beneath the others. Smaller. Marked confidential witness statement. Claire Marlowe's signature remained visible across the bottom despite 14 years of age. Nathan opened the document with shaking hands. The statement named several officials connected to money laundering through harbor construction contracts. Near the top of the page appeared one name underlined twice in dark ink. Warren Devereaux. Owen stared at the papers in disbelief. My God. Nathan said nothing for several seconds. Rain tapped steadily against the open locker door while Milo lowered his head onto his paws beside the evidence case, as though his work was finally ending. Nathan understood now why the investigation vanished so quickly after the warehouse fire. Devereaux had not merely interfered with the case. He had protected himself. The old deputy chief had buried evidence, redirected investigators, and allowed Claire Marlowe to disappear to protect a network built on corruption hidden beneath the city's waterfront expansion. Nathan closed his eyes briefly beneath the rain. 14 years of silence. 14 years of careers built on lies while one faithful dog carried the truth alone through storms, shelters, and forgotten roads across Western Canada. Owen crouched slowly beside Milo, his voice barely above a whisper. I called him useless. The old shepherd lifted tired eyes toward the young recruit. Owen swallowed hard. I did not understand. Nathan rested a hand gently against Milo's neck. Most people did not. Hours later, emergency investigators arrived at the harbor compound beneath flashing police lights blurred by rain and fog. Statements were taken quietly. Evidence secured. Senior officials contacted before sunrise. Nathan watched from a distance while detectives loaded the recovered case into an unmarked vehicle under armed supervision. No triumph filled the moment. Only exhaustion. The kind that settles into bones after carrying grief too long. Milo remained beside him through it all. But the old shepherd looked weaker now. His breathing slower beneath the cold harbor wind. Near dawn, Nathan finally sat with him beneath the overhang outside the storage compound while the city lights shimmered faintly across rain-dark water. Owen handed Nathan a blanket without speaking. Nathan wrapped it gently around Milo's shoulders. The shepherd leaned quietly against him for warmth. No barking. No movement. Just trust. Across the harbor, the first pale hints of morning began touching the clouds above Vancouver. Nathan stared toward the water while memories drifted through him like fog. Claire Marlowe finally had her voice back. The truth would no longer stay buried. And beside him sat the partner who never abandoned the case even when every human being around him did. Milo's eyes slowly closed beneath the blanket. Nathan felt the old dog's breathing settle into calm, steady rhythm against his arm. "You kept your promise," he whispered softly. The harbor wind carried the words away into the fading night. Months later, recruits arriving at the Alberta Provincial Police K-9 Academy would pass a bronze plaque mounted beside the training yard fence where snow often gathered in winter. Beneath the engraved image of an aging German shepherd appeared a single sentence written in small black letters. Some officers carry badges. Some carry the truth home.